Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 19th, 2024 Town Council meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Foote, will you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's do that backwards. Roll call. Councilor Chiricello.
Good evening.
Councilor Webb.
Good evening.
Councilor Foote.
Good evening.
Councilor Granessi.
Good evening.
Councilor McGeckern.
Good evening. Don't forget to.
Regrets from Councilor Flood. He was tied up this evening. And good evening from the chair. All right. Move into public forum. Is there a motion to open
So
public
moved.
forum?
Second.
All right. Motion by Councilor Foote to open public forum, seconded by Councilor Granessi. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, public forum is now open. If you'd like to speak, come up and just please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Jim Dietzel, 11 Hunter Drive. 2 weeks ago, we had an election here in town, and as a citizen and a volunteer working the polls, I just want to give my 2 cents. And first, I guess I have a lot of praise for everybody involved. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to the Derry public and the voters. They were extraordinarily well behaved. I guess there was a little bit of tension outside due to the traffic constraints and so forth, but when they got inside the four walls, they appeared to be very content with the way things were moving. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Derry Fire Department for providing some personnel in case anybody got sick or injured, and I don't think we needed them. Certainly the Derry Police Department, they were there all day, and they had pretty much nothing to do with inside the four walls, which is a good thing. The last thing we need is a big scene requiring law enforcement. I saw one poor police officer, Erin Sullivan, standing all by herself for most of the day. I saw her, I think, sit down for a few minutes to eat a lunch, and she did some squats. But besides that, she stood there all day like a real trooper. And Officer Kevin Davies was Johnny on the spot with his "I voted" stickers, as well as Sergeant Patrick Dawson, who graciously offered to switch places with me. He would check in the voters, and I would take his vest and go and direct traffic, and I politely declined. Anybody out there taking care of traffic duty really has my admiration. And finally, I was very happy to see Captain Vernon Thompson there. There was kind of a strange rumor going around that earlier that week during a rally for the vice president-elect, he was attacked by a mad protester or something and injured. As it turns out, he was, I guess, minorly clipped by a vehicle or something, and he told me that he was fine and it was nothing. But obviously, anytime an officer is hurt, even just a little bit while on duty, it causes concern, and I was very happy to see the captain there, still giving it his all after 43 years, and as well as Chief Fioli there setting the example by voting himself. I'd also like to point out the fine job done by our town moderator, Dave Nelson, who's here tonight, and I think he'll chime in from the town's point of view. He conducted all the classes, he trained me and got me prepared to do my duties. He was very patient, as well as our town clerk. Those two, the work they put in is, if you haven't experienced it yourself, you just don't know what goes into it. And I just want to give one story to reassure the public the pains we go through to make these elections fair. I actually one day took an afternoon and I helped the town moderator and the town clerk test the voting machines. And we were actually on Channel 4 News for that, by the way, and I have it saved in my iPad if anybody wants a private viewing after the meeting. We were magnificent. We had, I think, 6 machines, 7 machines, and one machine, we had 50 test ballots sent to us by the state that we had to put through 4 times. Face down, top, face down, bottom, and so on. So we had essentially 200 votes tabulated on 6 machines. So they went through the ringer. And one ballot on one machine in one race made a mistake. It gave an extra vote to one of the state rep candidates. And it wouldn't have made a difference in our pretend election, but nonetheless, right away, the town clerk took that machine out of service. One little mistake, because there was evidently a fold in the piece of paper, and it read it as the fold went right through the oval, and it read it as checked off. So those are the pains that we went through to make sure that everything is on the up and up. And just a little bit of information, even
If
though
I
we're
could just ask
discarding
you,
that.
we're about almost coming up on 5 minutes,
Okay.
so if you could
I'm
just
sorry.
kind of wrap up your story.
But I
Appreciate
just want to
that.
reassure everybody that even though we took that offline, it's not going to cost anything because we're getting new machines for the next election anyway. So hats off to everybody, and the council was there doing their part too, and I appreciate seeing them too. Thank you, everybody, especially Town of Derry. You did a great job voting.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jeff Molden, 5 Taylor Brook Lane. I'm here as a resident tonight for electricity rate relief, as well as a member of the Net Zero Task Force. A couple years ago, we put together a plan for community power that would enable the residents to see a relief in the rate of electricity. In the summer of this year, though, what was happening was the broker that we picked out was unable to deliver any particular rate relief. So we looked into alternatives during the summertime, did a due diligence on a number of that were using other vendors. And we even talked to towns that were using our broker and had left our broker and went to an alternative broker. What we were seeing is with the alternative broker is rates that were about 20% less than the utility rate. Our broker is unable to match that. So we did our due diligence in August, and we came back in to the town staff in September with a recommendation to proceed with a substitute vendor. So we understand later that the town staff is going to give an update on this particular subject, and we would like you to consider an alternative to continuing with the existing broker. We think 1.5 to 2 years is more than enough for the broker to achieve a rate that will save the town residents money. We have an alternative supplier that's already demonstrating that. It would be a very small change to go through that. There's a couple towns that have already done that with no issues. So we're asking you to consider that alternative tonight when you hear the recommendations from the town staff. Having said all this is the first time probably in 9 years that, having worked with the town staff, that we've kind of disagreed on a path forward. And we respect them a great deal. This is a difference of opinion, but we just want to make sure the town council is aware that there is an alternative to continuing with the current broker. And most importantly, I think it's important that we give our town residents the opportunity to get about a 20% cut in their electricity supply if we move forward with a different vendor.
Thank you, Jeff.
Steve Trefethan, property owner off the exit and business owner and homeowner in Derry. I'm gonna, if I can give this to the chair to pass this out, because I'm going to try to do this properly.
Okay. You have a ton of people if you need help.
Okay. So, starting from the right is our police station, and we know the exit's going to be changed. And if you look down along Folsom Road, you'll see this red and yellow. That's really kind of the widening, somewhere in there. This is just to point out a few things. There's obviously a pretty large lot here, about 3¼ acres, already approved for 5 or 6 medical buildings, probably going to be a $3 to $4 million project. That's 60 or 70,000 in taxes into the town of Derry. If that property gets utilized by the state, the town, a portion of it, then there would be nothing there. The smaller lots out front, you see in front of that, 3 lots, if that went to the state or the town for some reason, that would also be no taxes. If you go, there's a 3/4 lot here. I'm not sure, whoever were to utilize this lot would need that. Doesn't make sense. But if we were able to get this 3/4 lot you see right here, which is lot 65, that would give us parking. And for those 3 or 4 people on this board, they understand that if we want to build a building, we're going to need parking or we can't build as big. I did show you these pictures before, so it doesn't seem to be as much land as we're going to want to get based on what might be going on the other lots. It's always nice to have a footprint on the floor, but if we had to go 3 stories, we might still be able to get there if we had lot 64 and 65. Now, lot 64, just so everybody knows here, in case there's other things going on here, and again, the towns, the police station, all that have to do things. Lot 64 is unaccessible by any of this, and there is no curb cut. That's only accessible by what you'll see over here, lot 62 and 63. We have 2 entrances in, which we would have to utilize. That's only accessible by us. And I'm just going to bring this map up because there's a drainage canal that goes down the whole lot, and then there's the pond. So, to give you an idea, and I'm gonna stand up and point it this way. Here's the pond that's on my lots, but this is lot 64, and you'll see the rest of the pond goes here, and then you're gonna see the drainage canal that runs down lot 65, touching 64, so there's no way on. But again, we could use it with bridge parking, bridges to park. If I could, I know I'm out of time, but I'll just be 1 more minute. If I can.
Motion to extend.
So moved.
So moved. Or,
All those in favor?
aye.
I won't be long. So, and I'm just bringing you that in case, while the town council is talking about things that may or may not go on, I just want you to know that we're trying to do what we can. Bottom line is, we lost probably about $1 million in taxes. You're gonna see some notes on that. Since this has been going on till the end of the highway, we gave $5 million. If nothing goes on in my property, and by the way, everything left from Franklin Street all the way to the exit is unusable. It's non-taxable, it's unusable. So if nothing goes on in my property, your new tax base going from what it used to be 60,000 will be 10,000. That's all. I only have a garage. And then the other thing is if you take the $3 million that could have went on that other lot I pointed out, and then you take the $6 to $9 million that would have went on my lot, you would have had a $12 million assessment, which would have given you, whatever that would give you to, 2.2 million, whatever it would be a lot more in taxes. So we're going to go from nothing. We put out 5, so that's that. So I just wanted you to have those notes so you can look at it when you guys talk inside and see what you really need and what you're doing. One more thing I want to do. I want to touch on apartments just really quickly. I know with the West Running Book and the Abbott Court, and God knows what's going to go on with the town, with the schools or maybe town municipal buildings, if one day they're sold for something else. I just want to read a little bit of what the planning board is doing in Londonderry, because now they're getting really nervous with 1,000 apartments going into Woodmont. and we will have that about that number coming into Derry. I'll just read a little bit of it. In an effort to stem the tide of runaway development, the planning board is mulling whether to impose a temporary moratorium on the new real estate projects. Chairman Jake Butler said he wanted to make sure the town was going in the right direction and wasn't growing too quickly. I want to make sure we're doing the right thing for the town of Londonderry, and I'm not sure we are right now. Given the current situation, the town is in experienced growth and everything else, Butler said. Jumping over it, he was concerned about the ability for Londonderry's infrastructure to handle the explosive growth. I've got over 1,000 units we have either approved or actively being worked on inside of 1 year. Butler said he has heard from many of the public. We're all acknowledged it. We have infrastructure issues and are becoming worse every single day that we need to be able to address. So I'm just going to bring it up again. I just think we need to be proactive. And then the last thing we're going to be looking at is next year for the budget is going to be the school. Contracts are coming
Steve, if
up.
you can wrap up, please. You're
I
at
am,
now
yeah.
over 6 minutes.
And then the repairs that could be in the many, many millions of dollars. So that's it on those three subjects. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a minute or two.
Madam Chair, while we see if anyone in the room wishes to rise, we might want to remind folks that have phoned in that the way, if they so choose to raise their hand, would be by pressing *9 on their telephone.
Madam Chair, seeing no one online and looking out.
Let's just give 1 second, since we just
Yeah.
told them
I'm
again
sorry,
to
I
do that. Let's just
apologize.
give it a
I
second, make sure
apologize.
there's no one in here, but is there anyone coming?
Seeing no one rise at this
Is
time,
there
Madam
anybody
Chair.
else here? Seeing that, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing, Madam Chair.
Second.
All right, motion to close public forum in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, public forum is closed. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we have our consent agenda for tonight. Item 24-106, to approve workshop and council minutes from October 15th, 2024. 24-107, to approve non-public minutes from October 16th, 2024. 24-108, to approve the non-public minutes from November 6th, 2024. And item number 24-109, the acceptance of resignation for Conservation Commission member James Degnan. He's resigned his position as a full member of the Conservation Commission, so there will be an open seat there. His term would have expired in March.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion to accept the consent agenda by Councilor McEachern, second by Councilor Foote. On the motion, Councilor Cherichello? Yes. Councilor Webb?
Yes.
Councilor Foote?
Yes.
Councilor Granessi?
Yes.
Councilor McEachern?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. Excellent. Okay, we have a full chairwoman's report tonight. First up is Town Moderator Dave Nelson to report on the presidential election.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave Nelson, Town Moderator. Want to give you a post-election update. I would first like to thank a large number of folks, including the Town Council, for providing the financial and other logistical support for the elections, and many of you doing your constitutional duty as election officers at the polls for long periods of time. We definitely appreciate that. All the other election officials, including the supervisors of the checklist, the town's administration that has provided lots of support for this effort, Public Works Department, who did yeoman's service with setting up, maintaining and tearing down all of the infrastructure inside the polling place, the Police Department, who did yeoman's service with directing traffic, the Fire Department, who was on site to deal with any personnel injuries. There were none that I'm aware of. I'd also like to thank the Derry CERT team, who I see is here tonight for their assistance on the day. Would like to thank Pinkerton Academy for hosting the event and providing wonderful service to us. They were very, very helpful. Would also like to thank the Pinkerton Academy Honor Society student volunteers who helped as greeters during the day. I would like to thank all of our poll workers, whether they were volunteered or paid. We cannot do this kind of large effort without them, so deep, deep thanks. And to the voters who, as we heard, did their thing by turning out in numbers. We had record attendance for Derry. There were 15,662 Election Day voters, 2,483 absentee voters for a total of 18,145. We also registered 2,227 new voters on Election Day. I think everything went smoothly. There were some traffic snarls at the circle from time to time, but we didn't see a repeat of the late night traffic when we were attempting to close the polls to new voters. There were no voters in line anywhere on the roadways. There was a line outside the building, and that was it. And they were done by about 8:30. Upcoming events of note that we'd like to make sure that everyone in town is aware of. The filing period for town and school election races starts Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, and ends January 31st, 2025. So for the March election, if anyone's considering running for those positions, that is the filing period. And the deliberative session for the Derry Cooperative School District is February 1st, 2025. Election day is March 11th, 2025. Again, thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you very much to you and Tina and all the staff. Having been through your first presidential, I think you guys did an excuse me, an outstanding job, and everything went very smooth there, so thanks to you, and I know you guys did great training, and just want to say thanks.
Thank you, Counselor.
I would like to echo that as well. Having been there, start to finish and till the wee hours to drive the ballots back here, everything was seamless. You did a great job, and kudos on your first. That was a big election coming in to kind of get under your belt, and you did a great job, as well as everyone else involved, Tina and all the workers. It was a great day, I thought. Yeah.
Everybody, I agree. All your staff were wonderful, but I really want to thank the Derry voters. You had assigned me the job of timing a line, so I get to wait in line with people that were new voters and registering to vote. And I was just amazed at their positive attitude and their joy in participating in democracy that I get to see not only while waiting in that line with them, but throughout the day.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome job.
Next item under Chair's report is appointment to the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. So we have 4 positions on the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, and all 3 of our incumbents have requested consideration to be reappointed. So I move to appoint Richard Tripp, John O'Connor, and Jeff Moulton as members of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, all for a term to expire June 30th, 2028.
Second.
All right, motion by myself and second by Councilor Foote on the motion. Councilor Chiarichello?
Yes.
Councilor Webb?
Yes.
Councilor Foote?
Yes.
Councilor Granessi?
Yes.
Councilor McGeckern?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you to all 3 of you for serving on that commission. Next, I would like to invite Fire Chief Sean Haggart and Jacob Pelletier up for recognition of our CERT team.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to recognize our CERT team this evening. I think it's a symbol of how much we appreciate the CERT team by the on-duty members and the off-duty members that sit behind me to show their support here tonight. I'd like to introduce the CERT team liaison, dispatcher Jacob Pelletier. He works in the communications department, and he helps us out by being the liaison for the CERT team. He's going to provide just a little oversight of what the CERT team is in Derry.
Sure. So the CERT team, or the Community Emergency Response Team, is a group of volunteers that work hand in hand with police and fire during times of need. They're trained in areas such as emergency shelter operations, search, radio communications, CPR, and traffic control. And using the lessons learned in the classroom and during hands-on exercises, CERT members can assist others in their neighborhood following an event when professional responders are not immediately available. CERT members also serve a vital role at community events such as Touch-a-Truck and Dairy Fest. CERT members are also responsible for responding to fire scenes in Derry to provide firefighter rehabilitation. CERT members are always encouraged to take an active role in the Derry community. And if anyone's interested in becoming a CERT member or for more information, can reach out to me directly. My contact information is on the Town of Derry's website under Emergency Management.
We'd like to recognize a special CERT member this evening, but prior to doing that, does any of the council members have any questions that Jacob or myself might be able to answer about the CERT team?
I don't have any questions, but I would just want to thank all of our CERT members for volunteering to be part of that. It's an important job to have, and to know that we have folks in our community that care about each other. It's enough to be out there helping is much appreciated, so thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Echo that.
I'd like to invite up Danny Allen, please. Danny Allen has proudly served our community for many years, dedicating countless hours to Derry's CERT program. Always willing to step up when CERT is needed, Danny is a go-to member who often acts as a point of contact for the police and the fire departments at community events. Beyond work with CERT, Danny's an active member of the Southeast New Hampshire Hazardous Materials team, contributing important skills to their communications and rehab team. Additionally, Danny has become the regional go-to expert drone operator, providing critical support and expertise during emergencies and events. Danny's impact is evident through the involvement in numerous events, including Touch-a-Truck, Dairy Fest, municipal and state elections, ham radio communications, and CERT, and the recent CERT activation during the April 2024 ice storm. Also, Danny plays a vital role in firefighter rehab efforts, not only in Derry, but for neighboring communities as well. It is with great pride that we present the 2024 CERT Member of the Year Award to Danny Allen. Congratulations, Danny, and thank you for your unwavering commitment to our community.
We're going over there. If we can actually do a picture as well, over here with the council.
Leave the camera. You gotta have a call on. You gotta go get a call on. I've been calling you for 20 minutes. Go ahead.
The last thing under the chair's report is I just wanted to give a quick update on our town administrator search. As we mentioned in a previous meeting, Dave will be retiring eventually. So we are in the process of looking for our next town administrator. So I just wanted to give a quick update. As I said, that we have kind of been moving through the process. We are in the final phase. We have our final candidates that we are in that process of interviewing now. So we hope to have an answer at one of our December meetings. We should have an answer. And with that, we'll move on to the town administrator's report.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start off this evening with a report on the first quarter financials for FY25, presented by Mark Fleischer, our CFO.
Good evening. Guys can hear me okay?
Evening, yes.
Excellent. So this is the first quarter financial report for FY25 through the period of September 30th, 2024. Keys?
Up and down.
Okay, as we know, September is 25% through the fiscal year. Keep in mind that general fund operations do not include taxes, overlay, TIF, capital, and EMT revenues or expenses. So in the general fund for operations for FY '25 through September 30th, we were at 19% of budget for revenues and 31% of budget for expenses. Last year for the same period, we were at 21% for revenues and 33% for expenses. Again, as a reminder, revenues and expenses can run higher due to contractual obligations booked for the entire year. So, some of the items where revenues are tracking greater than the 25%. In fire, we have receipt of contracted ambulance and dispatch services. Fire permit and ambulance revenues are trending above budget. For tax, motor vehicle registrations were 29% of budget. Tax collector reports that recent transactions continue to include higher-end vehicles, increased volume in private sales, and title applications, as well as model year 2025 registrations. Overall, motor vehicle revenue was $137,795 higher than a year ago. For IT, intergovernmental revenue from cable and water and wastewater was recorded. In assessing, the timber tax is at 53.3% of budget. In OMO, interest revenue is 81.4% of budget, which is $170,000 higher than we were in Q1 in FY 2024. Town clerk, marriage licenses and vital records are greater than 25%, and civil forfeiture revenue is 44.8% of budget. In planning applications are 51.7% of budget, and in building, in code, building permits are greater than 25% of budget. Some of the items where we're tracking below 25%, in administration, we have a business license revenue is 11.9% of budget. In health, permit revenue is 22.6% of budget. And most of the activity for that line happens in Q3 and 4. For police, annual SRO, which is School Resource Officer over Pinkerton, that billing will be processed in Q4. For human services, repayments of assistance has not happened. We haven't had any yet this fiscal. Town clerk, dog license revenue is only 8% of budget. However, again, their activity is going to be mostly in Q3 and 4. In cemetery, the perpetual care revenue is less than 25% of budget. We do have to do a transfer from the cemetery trust in Q2 to help with offset operating expenses. In recreation, we also have to transfer from the Alexander Carr and McGregor trusts in Q2. And for parks, the Alexander Carr transfer also will happen in Q2. And in highway, inspection fees are 7% of budget. So on the expenditure side, remember, for FY '25, we're at 31% of budget. A year ago, we were at 33% of budget. Our departments are trending individually between 16% and 76%. Some of the items that are below the 25% for expenses, we have payroll-related expenses due to vacant positions in fire. We have 7 paramedic firefighter positions and 1 captain. And in police, we have 2 patrolmen that are vacant. SRO expenses are less than 25% of budget. Some expenses that are exceeding the 25% through September 30th, we have fire, the overtime is 41% of budget, but that's offset due to the vacancies. In IT, we have our annual software support payments have been processed. In OMO, earned time buyouts with roll-ups at 50.1% of budget. In assessing, the annual assessing contract has been encumbered. Human services, the annual agency payments are encumbered. Highway, annual roadway maintenance and road salt is encumbered. And the transfer station, the annual contracted services are encumbered. Other information. So the town's average general fund interest rate was 4.26% for September 2024. The September 2023 average interest rate was 4.37, We're starting to experience a reduction in investment yields. However, year-to-date, we continue to exceed budget. And that's what I have. Questions, comments?
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Churchill?
I do have a quick question on the dog licenses. Those are usually typically due in April, correct?
I know that the third and fourth quarter usually is the heavier months for dog license.
So are if they're due in April, is it because we have to chase people down to see the realization of 3 and quarter 3 and quarter 4?
I believe so. I mean, I quarter, believe April is in, what's that?
expire in April.
Yeah, yeah. So her trending of revenues for that particular line happens in the third and fourth quarter. She is obviously collecting some right now, but
Yeah.
Not certainly to the volume that she does during those periods.
Okay. I apologize. Did anyone else have a question while I'm looking at?
Any other questions?
Just a point of reference, the dog licenses, they open in January.
Oh,
They're due in the March-April timeframe, and so, like Mark said, the money comes in a little bit later, and then we're also collecting additional license fees and civil forfeitures for those folks who do not follow the law and don't register their animals.
okay. I found my other question. In fire, looks like we're 41% of budget, so that's trending,
For overtime?
yeah.
Yes,
That's, you're almost at half.
right.
And so, do you see any problems of that following budget? I mean, if we continue not to hire these vacant positions,
Well, hopefully, hopefully they can hire somebody. If they don't, and they have to keep filling the shifts on overtime, yeah, it could become a problem, but you have the open vacancies, all the payroll expenses related to that. Hopefully will offset it so the two would be a wash. Certainly, he has to watch his budget, and we'll keep monitoring that line to make sure we're okay at the end of the year.
okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
One more, I did have one more question. I'm sorry. So on the other information where the general fund interest rate was 4.26 for September, which is going, it's tracking down, obviously, because
It's
interest
starting
rate.
to, yes, like, we earned 5.2% on the unspent bond proceeds.
Right,
Through September. I looked today, the rate is now 4.81. So in just about a month or 2 months, it's gone down from 5.2 to 4.81.
okay, so these investments are tied into the CD rates?
These are all money market rates, because we had CDs, but what we do is, when we get tax money, we put them into CDs, and we put the school payment in,
Yeah.
for the amount of the school payment, because it's significant. And from there, they mature every 30 days. So we ladder it, and
Right.
obviously, the longer term, the better the rate in most cases. So, right now, we have no money in CDs, because we're getting ready to do tax collections. But now that the cash will be built up again,
Yeah,
we'll start doing that.
Okay,
probably in
thank you.
January.
thanks, Mark.
Any other questions? Thank you
All
very
set?
much.
Thank you.
Next up is Water and Wastewater Division's reorganization with Public Works Director Mike Fowler presenting. I don't know why I tripped over. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just to lead off, due to our form of government and with Mike and Tom pre-positioning the community, we've been very fortunate to receive millions of dollars in additional infrastructure aid for water and wastewater projects, with the lion's share being the Southern New Hampshire Regional Water Interconnection Project for Phase 2. And so we knew through conversations with the council that at some point we would need additional support in the personnel area to manage these projects and administer the larger systems. So Mike's going to speak to the plan on that for both water and wastewater.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mike Fowler, Public Works Director. So Dave has opened up with the general framework of the water and wastewater divisions moving forward with a number of large-scale capital plans. And we are also concurrently seeing retirements coming forward. Most prominently, our utilities crew chief appears to be on his way to retiring on December 31st. And obviously, Tom Carrier is at a point, perhaps in the next couple of years, of declaring for his retirement. So we're looking strategically ahead as to how to manage those large-scale projects. Sometimes we can bring consultants in, but another aspect that has hit a number of communities hard, including Derry, has been New Hampshire DES and EPA mandates. We just got our permit review for the wastewater treatment plant. We have some new items that will require additional monitoring and some other pollutant removals that were not in previous approvals. They usually go in 5-year cycles. So that permit's under public review. We should have some more information about that. But we have the confluence going on of Exit 4A, which there will be about $2 million worth of water infrastructure that will be upgraded as part of that project that kicks off soon. Then we also are looking at $14 million for the wastewater upgrades at the treatment plant, the Ryan's Hill sewer at some point within the next 2 or 3 years. That's valued at about $6.5 million. And then obviously the regional water, which may have impacts up to of $25 million. So Tom and I have looked at kind of the direction our department needs to go. We've recommended through meetings with Dave and with Catherine from Human Resources, what's the best path forward to beefing up our staffing. So the recommendation that we wanted to alert the council about tonight is that we have a plan that we'd like to implement as soon as January 1st, 2025, using the existing funds within the water and sewer budgets for FY25. There's a possibility, Tom's going to look at the numbers at the end of the year, that we may ask to have a supplemental from some lapsed funds for some water main projects that had not been expended in fiscal 24, but we're still in the process of evaluating that. What we're looking to do basically is to reclassify one of the positions to a utility operations coordinator, which is a higher level position with some expertise that we're looking for to be able to respond to these EPA and NHDES regulatory requirements. And then beyond that, we're also looking to beef up our engineering staff to have the ability to basically log all the improvements that are going into the geographical information system. And that would be a new position that we'd like to bring on starting or somewhere around January 1. And then finally, an administrative assistant in the office, where we are also seeing a lot of technological upgrades that we have to keep up with. So we're looking to add a staff member to assist on some of the meter billing and some of the reports that are going to be required to go. And just to give everybody a quick example, many residents over the past couple of days may have received lead service connection letters that were distributed. We had to do a physical survey of 4,500 services within the community, and that took such an amount of time. I mean, I give Tom and the staff an incredible, they did a great job at keeping on top of that. So basically the net impact in fiscal 25 would be $100,000, but Tom believes that he has the ability within his budget to make that work. If not, we're going to be seeking to do a supplemental to pull some money out of unrestricted fund balance. And then in future years, fiscal 27 and fiscal 28, that impact would be $300,000. We would propose to reduce the amount of water main work that we would be doing, because quite honestly, the community is going to see a lot of construction over the next 2, 3, 4 years, which is going to be comprehensive. It's Shenito Road, it's Folsom Road, and there's other parts of the community depending on when we kick these projects off. So I don't think there's any urgency to use all of that money. So we're going to be looking to throw that into personnel. So at this point, we don't believe that there's any council action that needs to take place, but we just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of what we're doing and we can answer any questions in a transparent manner. But as I had mentioned, it's something looking at the larger plan of succession here throughout the department, as many of our folks are 30, 35 years and have done great service to the community or for the community, and now they're starting to find their retirement. We're looking for those replacements, and sometimes that's going to be hard to find.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Council? Oh,
Yeah,
Dave?
the additional issue is on the revenue side. With our participation in the Southern New Hampshire Regional Water Phase 1, is that the water department is accruing about $225,000 in additional revenues per year. A lot of that is going to pay for utility costs because the additional water being wheeled through. That should increase to about $750,000 once Phase 2 is in, and the downstream communities draw up to 3.1 million gallons per day. If they meet that level, we'll see about $750,000 in additional revenues, although a lot of that will go to defray the additional utility costs. On the sewer side, we know that the council has authorized us to provide additional capacity to Londonderry. The state legislature at our behest passed a state law which allows us to charge a 15% surcharge on out-of-town wastewater customers to recognize the investment made in our sewer system in town by Derry ratepayers and Derry taxpayers, and that's going to bring in probably about $75,000 a year as well. So once those are up and running, those hopefully will be able to absorb a little bit of the expenses moving forward with the enhanced staff to manage our systems.
Thank you. Questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll keep you right there and move on to our community power update.
All right, so I'll kick off. So wanted to provide an update on the electric aggregation plan. As everybody is aware, the Net Zero Task Force, town staff have been working in conjunction. You had formulated an electric aggregation committee, which went through, had a plan that was adopted by the New Hampshire PUC, and that committee had completed its task and had dissolved as of December 31st, 2023. So it then became basically a staff operation to work with the broker, Standard Power, to come up with rates. And so just to kind of put this into perspective, the town has 4 franchise areas. It's predominantly Eversource, but all of the accounts were pulled, information was provided about the total use, and then all of that information was put forward for bids to competitive suppliers that would be available to all of Derry ratepayers. So this is not the municipal program that we've been running successfully for 15 years. This is directly to homeowners where they'd have an opportunity to purchase at hopefully rates that are lower than the default utility. So that process rolled out in the first half of 2024. The first set of rates that came in were not favorable, as Eversource had dropped below what the rates that we could provide through the broker. So there's a couple of windows to talk about here, and I think timing is really important as we talk about steps moving forward. So the utilities are setting rates every 6 months now. So for example, your default rate for Eversource, the last rate was set somewhere around mid-June for August 1st, 2024. It's a 6-month rate, and that carries us all the way until February 1, 2025. The next set of rates that would be available to homeowners are set probably about a month and a half ahead of February. So somewhere in mid-December, we should have some rates. So where we stand right now is that we are hoping to see rates that will beat not only the default rate, but then have a competitive rate structure that will be good enough for homeowners to decide they want to jump on to community power. Right now, there's an offer out there from CPC&H, and they are a large aggregator. They have offered 8.6 cents per kilowatt hour. However, one thing that I want to make sure that, again, in full disclosure, that rate is not confirmed to extend beyond February 1, 2025. So the nuance that we are trying to look for, and the reason that we haven't activated this program, is we want to have the ability on or around December 15th to have both bidders provide the town with their best competitive price. And then at that point, we can make an informed decision, because you'll have all the data points. You'll have Standard Power, you'll have CPC&H, and then you'll also have the 4 utilities by that time should have revealed their pricing structure for the next 6 months. So I think it's important that before any decisions are made relative to the selection or the migration away from our current broker, that we evaluate those pricing, or the prices, thoroughly. And I think one other thing that has to be looked at is sometimes you can get a longer-term contract for stability. So in other words, the default utility pricing will be 6 months at a time, and that's going to vary based on world events, supply and demand issues, et cetera, et cetera. So you've seen it go as high as 20 cents. It's dropped down to 8, dropped back, moved up to 10. So in some regards, you're trying to stamp out some of the volatility. So the contracts can be of longer ranges. They can be 12 months. They can be 18 months. They can be longer. So I think that also needs to be, brought forward to the table. So the recommendation of staff at this point is to report back to town council somewhere either at the second meeting in December or going into the first meeting in January with real prices to evaluate whether or not we want to migrate to CPC-NH, or if we want to stay with our current broker. So I think that's the advice that, or the recommendation that we pull forward from a staff perspective. We certainly understand that there's a desire to make that leap now to CPC-NH. That certainly is a tantalizing rate, but I think we have to have all the data in hand. Based on the experience that I have in pricing these markets out for the municipal buildings, I would recommend us waiting another month to see what is going on, and then we can really make. And if it truly turns out that CPC-NH beats the spread, then that's probably the direction that we're going to recommend. But I just wanted to make sure that we gave everybody the opportunity to have the full set of data to make an educated decision.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any questions? Yep, Councilor Churchill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mike, for that explanation. So CPC-NH, they would offer 6-month increments in a contract, whereas Standard Power would be a 12-month minimum. Did I hear that correct?
It is, and I think that's important to note that it's a little different philosophy in terms of the way that those contracts are bid out from Standard Power.
Okay. I do think it's a wise move to wait a little bit, because my understanding is energy prices do have some bearing on electricity prices. And what I'm reading, you tell me if I'm off base here, that oil prices are probably heading down because the economic happenings in China are just not there. So oil is stabilizing; it's not going up. So I'm hoping to see not only interest rates go down with the new political happenings in the United States, that we could probably get a really good rate if we wait. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, and I think, there's definitely a correlation between natural gas prices and what electricity prices that we've seen. You generally see the graphs trending with each other, but you are starting to see some relief at the pump. You're starting to see some relief in some of the energy markets that have been a little high over the last 12 to 18 months. So I think that's an added benefit perhaps that we could see if we're diligent about waiting the next 30 days or so.
Okay, and then finally, my next question is correct me if I'm wrong, when we had the presentation of the community power, if this was a opt-out situation, everyone would be switched to wherever the company that we choose to go with, but they could always choose to go back to default at any time, correct?
That is correct. The structure is set up where it's an automatic in or an opt-out in terms of that. Postcards would be sent. Homeowners don't have to do anything unless they choose to opt out. And if for some reason the pricing isn't favorable or if they have other reasons, and remember, there's 4 different utilities in Derry. So
Right.
Some communities only have a single utility if it's EverSource. I mean, I think 70% Eversource, then
Right.
New Hampshire Co-op is like 25% or 27%, and then we have a sprinkling of Liberty and a small Unitil territory. So they all could have different rates, and so it might not work for certain parts of the community, but work for others.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just have more of a comment. I concur. I think it's a great idea to hold off because with everything going on, we want to get the best rate for the ratepayers and for the people of Derry, so I concur. I think it's a great idea.
And can I just clarify that you said that we should have information, it would be within the next 30 days?
Yeah, I will continue to monitor the New Hampshire Public Utility site and stay in touch with our broker. But generally speaking, the last term, when the prices became in August 1st, those prices were available on the PUC website June 15th, June 17th. So it's roughly 45 days before the prices go into play. And they have a pretty tight, window. So as soon as I have those prices, I'll report those to Dave and distribute those. I just don't know how the timing is because the meetings for the council are December 3rd and 17th. So I'll continue to get more information and update Dave accordingly.
Councilor Webb?
So I just said, this is new to me as being new on the board. So the way that I would understand the process is these, whether it's standard power or a CPC, basically all the utilities are looking at 6-month contracts. So that you could be looking at every 6 months having to change a broker or a vendor.
Not exactly. Right now, we have an agreement with Standard Power as part of the electric aggregation plan.
Yeah.
So that is our broker of record at this point. But because to date, the pricing has not been favorable, the Net Zero Task Force has recommended looking to change that broker to CPCNH. So the idea basically is that you'd be breaking your agreement with your current broker and moving to another who has provided what seems to be lower rates at this point. But again, this is where the discussion of having the patience to wait another month to find out what the numbers are comes into play.
So if a dairy ratepayer signs up for this program, then it would, whether we change brokers or whether it would change contracts, they would still stay in the process?
Yes, and so basically the decision at a staff/council level would be who to engage with as a broker, but community-wide, once that number is established, the individual rate players will either get the benefit of it, or as Brian said, they can opt out if they feel it's not to their benefit. Because there are, and again, not to compound this any further, but you can choose to pay perhaps a higher rate if you want a greener blend, right?
Yeah.
So there's a basic and then 50% and 100%. So
I've played
consumers
that
can make a
rate game
choice.
on- And found one of the frustrating things that, because what you're describing is new information to me. One of the problems I've seen with playing that rate game through the Eversource websites is there seems to be some lost leaders. And if you don't pay attention to those lost leaders, you can get screwed.
Right.
Because, oh, great, I'm only paying 8 cents a kilowatt hour for this. But if you don't make certain that you change your plan actively, if you let it extend even a month, next thing you're paying 26 cents.
Yep, exactly. And I think we have the power of all the residences in Derry to put together. It's I think well over 100,000 kilowatt hours annually. So we should be able to get a good rate once those numbers are known.
Any other questions?
Quick follow-up, if no one else has any first question. So do we RFP for brokers? So for standard power, I would imagine when we brought them on,
Yes.
we haven't utilized them, have we?
We have, actually. They have provided the town with the 30 buildings, and I think I've talked about this during the DPW budget. What was done a couple of years ago was a competitive, here's all the usage for all the buildings, and then we asked suppliers plus brokers to get into the process. Since then, we continue to ask for, rates, and so they were brought into this process to create the plan, and that was presented through. So the RFP is probably a couple of years old on this.
Yeah, because my thinking really is, as a town our size with 35,000 people, we've got some pretty good leverage there. Any broker would be, I would imagine, would love to take us on. So unless I'm reading that wrong, I think Jeff's saying no, but the way I understood it is, there are companies that compete for this stuff, and they get their power from different markets per se.
Yeah,
So-
I don't recall that we had too many, brokers. There are a lot that are out there, but it was only one or two, I think, that put in. Sometimes you get the direct, like Constellation Energy will put in for these bids, but I do believe that CPCNH and our current broker are the only two that currently do these community power setups, because there's a lot of work that goes into it. Websites, billing, converting accounts, and the whole 9 yards. So Standard Power only has a handful of communities. I think they're like Swansea and Keene and a few others. CPCNH is a larger group of probably like 60 towns, but...
Okay, and I'm sorry to keep dragging on. Community Power, is that the one that's a nonprofit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's sort of different than Standard Power.
Yes.
And you talked about people having the opportunity to buy if they were, they're concerned about, as we call it, green energy, and they did want to spend a little bit more. They have the option, and as I remember it, there was like 2 or 3 different tiers there.
Yeah, generally it's been the basic option, which is like most people take advantage of, is about 24% renewable. There's a 50-50 renewable and non-renewable option, and
Yeah.
then there's 100%. And it goes up by half a cent, 1 cent per tier that you purchase in.
Right. And again, nonprofit, my understanding is that what they typically make is like 1%? Or am I confusing Standard Power? I can't remember. But I mean, for administrative costs, obviously there's got to be cost there. So
Right.
But
Yep. Dave?
anyway,
Yeah, one reason we're being very deliberate and responsible on this and not jumping at the quick rate is that the organizational structures are so much different. Standard Power is that, I believe, I don't know if Bob said what, they get 1/10 of a cent kilowatt as their compensation. CPC&H is an entirely different structure. They have a pretty extensive staff. So in addition to the rate, which is blended into your rate, they have reserve funds, they have administrative cost, and one of the requirements, which I was looking at the contract today, is that, they have pool funds, and then they have individual surpluses for each of the users. And then if you want to get away from CPC&H without any kind of financial liability, if the numbers go the other way, you have to give them 36 months' notice.
oh,
So that's why I want to be very deliberate to make sure we make the best recommendation, because candidly, if the numbers look to go to CPC&H, that is not going to be a 6-month in, 6-month out. That's going to be a long-term commitment. And the council ought to be aware of that. There may not be, there may be some financial consequences if the community tries to get out at a later date. So that's why we're being very responsible and very deliberate, looking at the 2 different options and what makes the most sense, because we don't want to put the council in a position of having to pay a financial penalty because a number of our residents decided to opt out and we're not bringing the load we promised originally,
so
as one example.
So on that, Dave, and thank you for explaining that, because I didn't realize that, but so the town has to basically guarantee that they're going to get a certain amount, and if for some strange reason electricity rates fluctuate and a bunch of people decide to opt out, the town could be on the hook.
Now, CPC&H, as I'm reading the documents today, they look at the hedge markets, and so they should be able to respond to those reduction in prices as well. But again, it's a much longer term commitment with that, and it might be the way to go at the end of the day, but we want to make sure we're looking at all the correct information and providing the correct recommendations to the council.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Webb?
Just going back to what Dave was saying, when looking at these different brokers, can we do like a 5-year look back on their rate history? Because
Yes, I do believe we were able to do that. CPCNH doesn't have, I don't believe that their history goes back all that far. They might be 2.5 or 3 years, but
Yeah.
we can certainly, I can tell you without any reservation on the Standard Power side, that we have consistently been able to beat the Eversource rates relative to our town buildings. So I can at least furnish that, look back and see where that's at. But I do believe that when some of the slides came up during the electric aggregation plan, we can look and see what some of those historic rates look like. And so I should be able to furnish that.
So I think it sounds like there's, as this conversation has gone on, there's more questions that and I'm sure you weren't prepared to present on some of that. So what I'd like to ask, I want to certainly, not play the game that we wait too long and then there's a problem, but also want to do our due diligence. So could we ask for our next meeting, probably won't have rates at that point, but if you maybe could come back to talk about kind of some of a little bit more of what Dave got into, kind of give us some of that history, knowing what we're getting into, maybe talk a little bit like the look back that we have with CNH and even kind of how they compared with what we have with Standard Power, so we can kind of be better informed, so we're ready to discuss it as soon as we see what these rates
absolutely.
are. Great. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much. All right. And now the TA's report.
Okay. The Exit 4A corridor, the Governor Executive Council awarded Contract B to Weaver Brothers, which is the firm which completed Contract A, which is the improvements you see along I-93. To refresh your memory, Contract B goes from behind Tom Lanning's property almost on the Derry-Londonderry line, and it carries through North High Street, Folsom Road, through the intersections, and it terminates just easterly of Shenito and Pinkerton Streets. And we know that Weaver's been in contact with Mike's department to start establishing some signage and start looking at some tree removal. So they'll be moving on this winter. I expect a vast majority of the work will occur in the spring, but of course, that all depends upon how severe the weather has been. As moving on to Public Works, as you know, it's been a pretty dry fall. We do need some rain. However, a couple of our projects have really benefited from that dry fall. The second Sunset Avenue culvert was open on November 8th, so now there's traffic flowing through that community. Also, Elmo Drive Phase 1 water main project the base paving was down and deemed substantially complete recently. So that's always good news. And also, I'm sure it's great news to Mike because on the landfill solar project, the Department of Energy has not been the smoothest agency to deal with administratively. That grant has finally been approved. DES has finally approved the environmental permits, so we're looking for that project to proceed to construction in 2015. And as one segment of the DOE grant, there's a $231,000 federal, actually Eversource interconnection cost, and we expect that's going to, 80% of that's going to be absorbed by the DOE grant, so that's good news. That one is finally moving out the door and into construction coming in the spring. On finances, our town tax rate was set this past week. It is $18.69, which is a reduction of just about $1 from $20.68. It's a reduction because we did a reval and we have more value. So what we do is, we call it truth and tax rate, is that we look at what the voters for the school approved, what the council approved for the municipal budget, and also what the county delegation approved for the county budget. And if we had not had a reval, the overall tax impact increase currently is about 4.8% through the community. The town was up 2.53% as far as tax impact. Rockingham County was up 3.42%, and the blend of the school, state, and local rates were up by 5.85%. So overall, we're raising about, although the rate went down, we're raising about 4.8% more in tax dollars than we did in 2023. As Mark explained, there's no concern of revenues this time, and our interest rates, although they're being reduced, we should make our annual budget projection in the next month. Looking forward to next year's budget. As you know, our tax cap requires us to measure the potential growth to the Northeast CPIU. The monthly rate came out in October. It's an increase of 3.5%. It's been hovering between 3.4 and 3.6 for the last several months, and historically, it has dipped towards the end of the fiscal year. So I would expect we'll have a year-end rate somewhere above 3% as the cost of living for the Northeast CPIU, which runs a little higher than the national rate. So you see the national rate is probably closer to 3 or in the high 2s. The Northeast historically runs a little higher, but that's the metric by which our tax cap is structured on, so that's one we follow. On other building and infrastructure projects, Central Fire Station construction, again, benefiting from the dry weather. We've got a number of trades out there, predominantly the masons, framers, and electricians. And looking at the police station project was, again, is just to evaluate the space needs. The representatives of LaValle Breckenridge were on site last week analyzing the building, doing structural tests, space needs, meeting with staff. So we should receive an existing conditions report in the next couple of weeks. You will note that Public Works also coordinated the erection of the Christmas holiday tree and the pole amount of snowflakes. So they'll be ready for the Very Dairy Holiday event on November 30th. And we originally were going to have the developers for Abbott Court at this meeting. There was a scheduling conflict, so they will be here at our December 3rd meeting. We've done, as you recall, just for a refresher, the way the project has been structured in numerous conversations with the council is that there's going to be a multifamily development, there's going to be a set-aside commercial retail with walk-ups above it, and there's going to be a parking garage, which eventually will be owned by the town. Because of our agreements with the developer, we anticipate that about half of the bond for the garage will be municipal taxable bonds, and half will be tax exempt. So we've been planning on this for some time, so there's certainly adequate funds in the TIF budget to pay for that debt service. So once we receive final estimates as to construction costs, we'll come back to the council with different options. Right now, we're looking at, obviously, is bonding the tax exempt portion. We're looking at using funds from the TIF Development Fund to buy down the taxable portion a bit, to borrow less money at a higher rate. So ultimately, you'll get to where the debt is paid, and then the council either can identify additional projects within the TIF district or return some of those tax dollars to the general tax base. That's all I had.
Any questions or? Yep, Councilor.
One was going back on water. It might be more appropriate for Mike. Are there any concerns with the current drought conditions of water supply to our community and Manchester Waterworks?
At this point, I'm not aware of any concerns. I know Tom and the staff has been monitoring all of the vulnerable sections would be the community systems, but as it stands right now, we're still doing okay. Lake Massabesic does have a strong, plus we have the Merrimack River supply now, so Manchester Waterworks, our core supply, is in good shape. I haven't heard any concerns from Manchester Waterworks. Like I said, I do hope we do get some rain, because we do want to make sure that those satellite systems that we have are covered. And obviously, we haven't heard anything from Pennachuck with any issues from those franchise areas.
Yeah. And this is a question just regarding Pennachuck. I don't know if we know this information or not, but you talked about galvanized pipe. Mm-hmm. During the planning and construction projects of some of the subdivisions that Pennachuck is responsible for, be blunt, I'm one of them. Do we know what kind of pipe they used?
Well, so we didn't go through and do the Pennachuck inventory, but for the town, we just implemented the lead service. I think Tom's evaluation came that we found 20 services that we could confirm that had galvanized pipe. We found no lead services whatsoever.
Yeah.
We have, though, about half of our services in the dairy core system that we still need to do further evaluation on, and that might mean getting into the basements. I'm hoping we don't have to do any exploratory excavation, but there will be a push from the EPA nationwide to look at galvanized service removal or replacement, and certainly lead services. Like I said, no concerns for lead in Derry, but the galvanized services, we're going to continue to identify those on our core system.
Yeah, I know they're not necessarily in our system, but I didn't know if, when some of these developments, if they said what type of pipe they were putting in.
Yeah, some of the stuff that Pennachuck had installed and systems that they had inherited. I don't know that we have access to those records, but Pennachuck, I believe, has the same requirements to inform their users.
Thank you.
Yep.
No more questions. We will move on to our one public hearing this evening. Public hearing at number 24103 is Resolution 2024-067 to approve a supplemental appropriation to purchase capital equipment and to authorize the execution and delivery of a master lease purchase agreement therefore. Chief Financial Officer Mike Fleischer presenting. It's a long title.
Hello again. So during the FY25 budget review in May of 2024, was determined into entering into a competitive bid master lease agreement for capital equipment and vehicle purchases over the next 5 to 7 years would be cost effective for the town. After soliciting bids from Municipal Lease Services, TD Bank was chosen again for their guaranteed fixed interest rate and no fees passed into the community. The interest rate as of October 4, 2024 was 3.9% for a 5-year term and 3.95% for a 7-year term. Interest rates on borrowing continue to change daily, and we have locked into these rates until late November 2024. The FY25 lease amount approved in the budget was $1,842,000. The total cost of these vehicles and equipment, however, is $1,926,958. Continuing the trend experienced in recent years, pricing in the marketplace is greater than what was estimated when the FY25 budget was established. One equipment substitution was made at the transfer station. Originally, a tractor was going to be purchased for $175,000 to move trash trailers around the transfer station site. A yard mule truck has been substituted at a cost of $160,000, resulting in a reduction of $15,000 from the original plan. Due to these pricing changes, we are seeking a supplemental appropriation of $57,788 for the general fund, $21,199 for the water fund, and $5,971 for the wastewater fund, for a total of $84,958. Lease revenues will increase by the same amount as a supplemental appropriation in the corresponding funds. The adjusted amount to be financed by TD Bank will be $1,926,958. We are also seeking approval to enter into a master lease agreement with TD Bank for the FY25 purchases. Lease payments will commence in FY 2026. So we're looking for approval of Resolution 2024-067. It's quite lengthy, so you may want to take a drink of water before you start.
It is quite, I
Thank
think
you.
they thought the title was long. You haven't even seen the resolution.
So before we launch into reading anything, we need to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to open public hearing by Council McEachern, second by Councilor Foot. On the motion, Councilor Chercello?
Yes.
Councilor Webb?
Yes.
Councilor Foot?
Yes.
Councilor Ganassi?
Yes.
Councilor McEachern?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. Public hearing is open if anyone would like to come up and speak on this.
Anyone online?
Seeing none, rise online, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, seeing no one online and neither of the two people in our audience
Either
wanting
of
to
you wanna
stand up,
speak?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, a motion to close public hearing by Council McEachern. I'll give the second to Council Ganassi this time. You guys are right in sync. On the motion, Council Chercello? Council Webb?
Yes.
Council Foot?
Yes.
Council Ganassi?
Yes.
Councilor McEachern?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. Public hearing is closed. Any councilor questions or comments? before we
No, I'm
get to
all
this one?
set. I'm just,
You guys can
I
take turns
can't
if you need
believe
to.
how much the trucks went up that quickly, but Councilor Granessi, who's a truck driver, has assured me those look good, so I'm ready to rock and roll if you want.
I just have one comment.
Yeah,
So I'm not so much on this, which I don't have an issue with, but looking more into the budget in the future as we look at the capital expenditures for vehicles and all that stuff. Do you think that we will need to be projecting those expenditures even more? So if the list price that when we do setting our budget is, let's say, $50,000 on a pickup truck, but through the time it takes to go through the lease and all this other stuff, do you think it would be more prudent to say in a budgetary process that vehicle is actually going to cost $55,000?
Yeah,
This is
I would- I
more
would-
coming up in next year's budget.
I would think so. I mean,
Yeah.
at some point, they look at the, get estimates in January, and here it is almost December, and now we're finally finalizing this, and as you can see, the prices went up quite a bit on a few
Yeah.
things. So yes, we have to probably add a little bit to the projection that we do with the CIP each year to try to come up with something more reasonable, because this is like the third or fourth time
Right.
where we've had to do this. And timing is everything. Maybe things will change if the economy slows down a little bit, but I don't know. And it's becoming more and more difficult to say, okay, like we try to, through the leasing, we do like $50,001 and up. Now a pickup's gonna probably cost $60,000. So now we're gonna start leasing those, where in some cases, maybe we weren't leasing them because they were just slightly below 50,000. So these are the things that we have to be aware of when we do the CIP, especially this coming year.
Because I'm also concerned, again, from a budgetary standpoint, that what happened, for instance, with the forestry tanker or some of the public works vehicles is going to occur again. And that's where we look at the purchase of a vehicle, and then it either gets canceled out of the blue, or they come back to us and say, oh, yeah, but it's now what we agreed to, it's now another 10% more.
The trend has been that we're buying vehicles right off the lot rather than special ordering.
Yeah.
The special orders take forever, and then the cost is just astronomical. So if it comes in white, we'll buy a white one. If it comes in green, we'll buy a green one. And it seems to be working a little bit better. Not for like a piece of apparatus.
Yeah.
That's something different.
All right, if there are no more questions, everybody should get comfortable at home, because this is going to take a while. Resolution number 2024-067, to approve a supplemental appropriation to purchase capital equipment and to authorize the execution and delivery of a master lease purchase agreement therefore. Whereas the town charter establishes the town council as the appropriating authority of the town, and as such is empowered by section 9(6) of the charter to make supplemental appropriations after the annual budget is adopted, and whereas the town council approved the purchase of capital equipment as part of FY25 budget adoption, and whereas the current economic conditions require supplemental appropriation to complete the purchase, and whereas the town customarily finances acquisitions through a lease purchase program, and whereas these excess costs will be absorbed through multi-year lease purchase payments from the town's capital reserve funds, and whereas the town of Derry, a body politic and corporate duly organized and existing as a political subdivision of the state, is authorized by the laws of the state of New Hampshire to purchase, acquire, and lease personal property for the benefit of the leasee and to enter into contracts with respect thereto, and whereas leasee desires to purchase, acquire, finance, and lease certain equipment with a cost not exceeding $1,926,958, constituting personal property necessary for leasee to perform essential government functions, and whereas leasee proposes to enter into a certain master lease purchase agreement with TD Equipment Finance, Inc., the form of which has been available for reviewing by the government body of the leasee prior to this meeting, and whereas the funds are available by leasee under the agreement will be deposited into an account designated in writing by the leasee for the purpose of administrating the funding amount pursuant to this lease, or pay the leasee an amount equal to the funding amount, page 2. Whereas the equipment is essential for the leasee to perform governmental functions, whereas the leasee has taken the necessary steps, including those relating to any applicable legal binding requirements, to arrange for the acquisition of the equipment, and whereas the governing body of the leasee deems its benefit of the leasee and for the efficient, effective administration thereof to enter into the financing document and any other documentation necessary, convenient, or appropriate for the purpose of the financing of the equipment on the terms and conditions described herein. Now, therefore, be resolved in council that the sum of $84,958 is hereby raised to complete the purchase of capital equipment to be allocated to the following funds: General Fund, $57,788; Water Fund, $21,199; Wastewater Fund, $5,971. Now, therefore, be resolved by the governing body of the leasee that the leasee is hereby authorized to execute and deliver agreement with the principal components of the rental payments in the aggregate amount not to exceed $1,926,958. Be it further resolved that the finance documents and the acquisition and the financing of the equipment under the terms and conditions as described in the finance documents are hereby approved. The town administrator of the leasee and any other officer of the leasee with the power to execute contracts on behalf of the leasee be, and each of them hereby is authorized to execute, acknowledge, and deliver the finance documents and any other such instrument documents and certificates which may be required by and provided for in the financing documents, or as may otherwise be required for or necessary, convenient, or appropriate to the financing described in this resolution, together with any changes, insertions, omissions therein, as may be approved by the officers who execute the finance documents, such approval to be conclusively evidenced by such execution and delivery of the financing documents. The town administrator of the leasee and any other officer of the leasee with the power to do so be, and each of them hereby is authorized to affix the official seal of the leasee to the financing documents and attest to the same. Be it further resolved that the proper officers of the leasee be, and each of them hereby is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all papers, instruments, opinions, certificates, affidavits, and other documents, and to do or cause to be done any and all other acts and things necessary or proper for carrying out the resolution and the financing documents. Last page. Be it further resolved that pursuant to Section 265B of the Internal Code of 1986 as amended, the leasee hereby specifically designated the agreement as a qualified tax-exempt obligation for the purposes of Section 265B3 of the Code. Be it further resolved that nothing contained in this resolution, the agreement, nor any other instrument shall be construed with respect to the leasee as incurring a pecuniary liability or charge upon the general credit of the leasee or against the taxing powers, nor shall the breach of any agreement contained in this resolution, the agreement or any other instrument or document executed in connection therewith, impose any pecuniary liability upon the leasee or any change or any charge upon its general credit or against its taxing power, except to the extent that the rental payments payable under the agreement are special limited obligations of the leasee as provided in the agreement. Be it further resolved that if any section, paragraph, clause of the provisions of this resolution shall for any reason be held to be invalid or unenforceable, the invalidity or unenforceability of such section, paragraph, clause, or provision shall not affect any of the remaining provisions of this resolution. This resolution has been adopted by 2/3 of the majority of the entire council as required by the charter and shall take effect immediately upon passage.
Can you repeat that?
That's the cure for insomnia.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Granessi. All right.
Good job.
Nice
On
job.
the motion, Councilor Chercello.
Yes.
Councilor Webb.
Yes.
Councilor Foote.
Yes.
Councilor Granessi.
Yes.
Councilor McEachern.
Just because I read 2.5 pages, yes.
And chair votes yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have agenda item 24111, resolution 2024-073 to authorize leases and lease rates at the Adams Memorial Building. Public Works Director Mike Fowler presenting.
All right, so hopefully this will be a little bit more straightforward and easy reading. So, Department of Public Works manages the Adams Memorial Building. We have 3 current tenants, Greater Derry, Londonderry Chamber of Commerce, Derry Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and the Greater Derry Arts Council. So we support them with utilities and custodial services. And so obviously that's been a long-term agreement with all of those tenants. What we're here today is two of the agreements expire as of December 31st, 2024. We're proposing a 3-year extension for both the Greater Derry Londonderry Chamber and the Derry Housing and Redevelopment Authority, that the rates that they pay will go up 3% annually. That's, again, just a token rate to keep pace with inflation. The Greater Derry Arts Council is a little bit of a different situation. They had requested and we had granted a 10-year lease, but the first 3 years had the identification of the lease rates, and then it had elaborated that there would be further amendments to that particular agreement. We are again proposing to keep consistent with the other 2 tenants, 3% increases over the next 3 years. All 3 will take rates to December 31st, 2024, with annual increases of 3%. And that's pretty much everything. We have a good relationship with all 3 groups, and we look to continue their tenancy.
Thank you. Any questions, Council? Councilman Gagnon?
Dave, just a quick question. Are we current with all 3 tenants?
In what respect, in payments? Yes,
Payments?
I believe we are. Yep.
Fair enough. If there are no other questions, I can engage in reading this resolution. Seeing no questions from other councilors, Resolution 2024-073, to authorize leases and lease rates at the Adams Memorial Building. Whereas Section 5.1 of the Town Charter designates the Town Council as the governing legislative body of the town, and whereas RSA 41.11A authorizes the legislative body to enter into land leases, whereas the town has enjoyed a longstanding relationship with the Greater Derry Arts Council, the Greater Derry Londonderry Chamber of Commerce, and the Derry Housing and Redevelopment Authority as tenants at the Adams Memorial Building, and whereas the leases of all 3 organizations expire on December 31st, 2024, and, not all 3, sorry, whereas the leases of the Greater Derry Londonderry Chamber of Commerce and the Derry Housing Redevelopment Authority expire on 10/31/24, and whereas the lease rates need to be authorized for all 3 tenants beginning January 1st of 2025, whereas the presence of all these groups aligns with the council's goal to maintain a vibrant downtown, now therefore be resolved in council that the town administrator is hereby authorized to execute all necessary documents with the Greater Derry Londonderry Chamber of Commerce and the Derry Housing and Redevelopment Authority to extend their leases until December 31st, 2027, and to establish lease rents for all 3 tenants through December 31st, 2027, as set forth in the attached schedule. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage.
A motion by Councilor McEachern and a second by Councilor Foote. On the motion, Councilor Chiarichello?
Yes.
Councilor Webb?
Yes.
Councilor Foote?
Yes.
Councilor Ganesi?
Yes.
Councilor McEachern?
Yes.
And chair votes yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Councilor comments or liaison reports? Yes,
I have a
Councilor Ganesi.
liaison report from the planning board. At the last meeting, just kind of FYI, Keystone Development on Rockingham Road, per the engineer Mark LaRue, they were asked to move the building back about, I believe it was about 10 feet, so they can get some parking there, so we just saw that. We approved that, and we also changed their phasing structure there, so they're gonna be building out some of the buildings before the commercial side of that goes out. Also, the planning board's been working on workshops, and at tomorrow night's meeting, we're gonna be scheduling a hearing that we're gonna be seeing regarding changes to the definitions of the zoning ordinance in regards to appeals, the rehearings, office medical business district section, accessory dwelling units, we changed some stuff in that, and the office business district, and independent adult overlay district. We're also going to schedule a public hearing that will be seen at the council for change in the land development control regulations, which would be the parking requirements. We added some new sections to that. Technical review committee section, outside engineering review, in the fees and costs, we updated all that. Final application phase submittals in their fees and cost in the adult, I said the adult entertainment, and the fees and costs for the just general provisions. And then we have a couple other workshops tomorrow night, and it's going to be changing. What is, a lot of it is legislative, so kudos to Liz Robideau and Dave Nelson, the chair. They've been working on that, changing some stuff. They're also going to be changing workshop tomorrow on the, I guess it's something with the abutters in the zoning ordinance definitions for permitted use of park and technical review committee. And then we're going to be talking about the another part of the outside engineering review for the town for the land development control. So planning board's working, changing a lot of stuff, being updated with all the regulations, and that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have two things. Quickly, just want to, did you have something? Oh, it is. Okay, thank you. The first thing I just want to liaison report, I was at the Derry Public Library meeting last night, and they're getting ready for budget season, which will be with us there before we know it. They also set their meeting schedule for 2025, so they're kind of just moving around along business as usual. That always enjoy attending that meeting. It's a great group. And I want to give a plug for the Very Derry holiday, Saturday, November 30th, so Saturday right after Thanksgiving. There's a whole big day of things. I'm going to summarize them quickly. All day, starting at 10 a.m. up until about 5 p.m. We have Small Business Saturday, so hoping to get people into our local businesses. There's a red ticket raffle associated with that. If you shop in our small businesses, you can bring your ticket down to get to turn that in, which will help support. There's raffles going on with that. We'll also have inflatable snow globe, which I really hope works this year, so I don't have to sit in it while hold it closed, and a campfire with toasting marshmallows and some other things happening down there. So that will all be happening at 1 West Broadway, so right on the lawn near Benson's there. At 1 o'clock is our parade, so parade will head down Broadway to Crystal Ave and right near Hood Commons. As part of that parade, the Derry Village Rotary and the Derry Police will be out collecting. Derry Village Rotary will be collecting non-perishable food items or cash donations, and Derry Police will be doing their Toys for Tots collection. From 2 to 5, so right after the parade, come on back downtown. There will be crafts activities, and cookie decorating over at the Parks and Rec. And at the Opera House, visits with Santa and holiday entertainment at the Opera House through the day. And then at about 5 o'clock, we'll start to gather for our tree lighting, which will happen between 5:15 and 5:30. That, again, is on that lawn right out in front of Benson's. And then all the kids can go home, and starting around 4, from 4 to 9, there will be a Santa crawl for those that are 21 and older. A pub crawl at any of our participating establishments on Broadway. It'll be, I believe it's $1 off your first drink in those establishments, if I remember correctly. So that is the quickest way I could get through all of those awesome things that are happening. So hope to see everyone downtown on November 30th. That's it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn from Councilor Foote, second by Councilor Granessi. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed to that? All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.